What's that?
You feel ready?
I feel ready.
Okay, cool. What are you gonna say?
You're just gonna start this
I'm gonna
meeting
start.
and then I'll
Yep.
start to council it. We're done, right?
I think so. Okay. We are gonna call the special Telluride Housing Authority meeting to order for Tuesday, November 5th, 2024 at 10:02 a.m. We are here present in Rebecca Hall and also on Zoom. First item is roll call, and we want to start with Elena.
Ellen 11.
Jesse Arguez.
Geneva Shawnette.
Teddy Erico.
Dan Enright.
And we will move on to number one, action items. A, consideration of a resolution authorizing the execution of a ground lease between the Telluride Housing Authority and the town of Telluride, Colorado, to lease certain THA-owned property generally located at portions of Lot A, Bachman Village, Telluride, Colorado 81435, to the town of Telluride. And James Van Hoosier will help us with this item.
Thank you, Chairperson Shawnette. James Van Hoosier, Town of Telluride. So today we will be considering several items to authorize the redevelopment of the Shandoka Phase 2 project. Your THA item related to that project is the consideration of a resolution of a ground lease to the town of Telluride. And we need that item to be able to do your two town council action items of introduction and first reading of an ordinance concerning the financing improvements for a COP. And then town council will also be considering the acceptance of the proposed contract sum for the redevelopment and proceeding with the project. So if this board doesn't have any issues, I'd like to talk about it all comprehensively. And then you will make your THA action. Then you'll close this meeting, you'll open a town council meeting and take your two town council actions. Does that sound like a plan?
Sounds good to me.
Great. Okay. Little background on Shandoka Building F. So several years ago, it was determined that through the town council goals and objectives that Building F was in need of redevelopment in some sort. In 2023, we engaged Shaw Construction and Cushing Terrell Architects to do a preliminary study of the building to determine the best path forward, whether that would be new construction, new modular construction, or a phased renovation and remodel of the project. This board chose to go forward with a remodel and renovation in a phased way. Phase 1, I'm happy to report, will be getting its C of O tomorrow, and people will be moving in starting the 10th. So that project has been on time and on budget, and we are ready to consider phase 2 at this time. One of the nice things about doing a phased project is lessons learned. So we were able to take what we learned in doing phase 1 and apply it to phase 2. Feel very good about the scope and the pricing and all of the details around phase 2. I'll talk about phase 2 specifically now as far as what is included. So in the $8.4 million guaranteed maximum price, we will be doing adding 2 additional studio units to the south building, an expansion of a ground floor 3-bedroom unit to a 4-bedroom unit, a pop-up of a 3rd floor 2-bedroom into a 4-bedroom, and the conversion of the existing laundry and maintenance room into a new 2-bedroom unit. So we will be adding 3 new units and a total of 7 new bedrooms on phase 2 of the project. The other scope adds are consistent with what was done at phase 1, including all new interior finishes, floors, hardware, base and case, cabinets, countertops, kitchens, all new painting, all new plumbing, of replacing all sanitary waste piping. This was something that we learned during phase 1. We had initially scoped just replacing the horizontal waste lines, but when we got in there, realized good thing to replace all of these pipes. And it's going to be a huge benefit to this project to have all of the waste lines replaced. Mechanical, we are continuing to utilize the existing fin tube radiant heating systems and boilers. However, we are upsizing the electrical for potential all electric in the future, and we are doing washers and dryers in each individual units. Also of note, the Town Sustainability and Grants Administrator has applied for a $1 million public building electrification grant for this project. If we receive that grant, and they are making this preliminary decisions, I think today at the state, so we will know very shortly if we've received that grant or not. If we do receive that grant, we may be back before you looking for additional matching funds because it's a matching grant. But, you know, per this board's direction, we are always looking for grant opportunities for our housing projects. So this one would be specific for electrification of Shandoka Building F Phase 2.
James, are we going to do that? We're going to do that electrification whether we get the grant or not, correct?
We are doing the electric ready upsizing regardless, yes.
And if we get the grant, what would that enable us to do additionally? Does it just lower our cost, or would we do solar or something?
We
rest of
we
it.
would convert to VTAC heating and
Okay.
electric water heaters and that type of thing.
And that's a pretty expensive undertaking, and that the grant would be paying for 70 to 80% of that. So our match of that would be probably 200,000.
Amazing.
Okay, the target affordability of this project is 120% AMI, consistent with previous THA and council direction. And we are looking at let me pull up the budget summary sheet real quick. I'm going to put that on the screen for everyone. Okay, so this is our budget summary sheet. As discussed earlier, the proposed guaranteed maximum price for this project is $8,404,658. And our soft costs are approximately $1,080,000. We are proposing to have this funded primarily by a certificate of participation, COP, in which the building F itself is used as the asset securing the COP. We have Dalton Kelly and Amy Canfield on the line if anyone has any specific questions about the bond or the COP financing portions of this project. But I'm bringing up this slide to bring up the proposed subsidy for this project. To hit the 120% AMI target, we are asking for a $1,136,438 cash subsidy from the town's affordable housing fund to lower the price of the borrow and subsidize the project to hit the rent targets that we were looking at. That ends up being about a $67,000 per unit subsidy, which is right in line with the phase 1 subsidy of approximately $64,000 per unit. On a per square foot basis, it's actually lower because these are larger units in general in phase 2. And this is at the lower end of what we have been seeing for subsidies in the last 7-8 years. Voodoo, for example, was $170,000 per unit. We think that the lower subs per unit subsidy is appropriate for a remodel project.
Also, you'll note that we have expended $751,000 so far of that subsidy. So the remaining subsidy that the town would need to be putting towards this project is about 500,000.
Correct, yeah, and that 751 number already expended includes the part one services of the, getting us to the 50% CDs and going through HARC and P and Z, as well as that approach phase two's portion of the approach analysis that was done last year to determine the best way forward with this project. If I missed anything else? Oh, yes, 12-month schedule. As I mentioned, phase one is getting its CO tomorrow, and the Shaw team is ready to go with phase two as soon as the project is approved. So we can have people in before next Christmas in phase two. And I believe that is it for the presentation. Happy to take any questions on this project.
Anybody have questions?
Comments?
Comments are welcome as well.
Excuse me. Yeah, I'll keep it brief. As those who've been on THA sub with me for a while know, I've had skepticism around the building F redevelopment. Last year in 2023, we hired Cushing Terrell to perform preliminary analysis of the building and the feasibility of a redevelopment project like this. In summation, the quote I'll pull from that, which is from the June 21st, 2023 meeting, is it was the opinion of the consultant that, quote, that the buildings are in good to very good condition and are performing acceptably. There's more in that leads me to conclude that a lot of this is beyond the realm of which I would feel was necessary. There definitely was some things that needed updating at Shandoka F building. This then ties into the completion of our recent Voodoo project, where we were unable to fill 8 of the 27 units in the initial lottery, which gives me concern that we are not hitting the mark of who we should be targeting with these projects. There's lots of demand and a long waiting list, as we all know, for the other Shandoka buildings. They're at the lower price point. And so when we're going to spend in excess of $9.5 million, while yes, generating more bedrooms, that's great. I support more affordable housing. I think the demand is there. I am not convinced that we are hitting the mark with who we are trying to house with these projects.
Okay, anybody? All right. Well, if there's no discussion, I'd entertain a motion. It's on page 7. Or 8, I mean.
I have it on 3. No,
Second.
3 of 20 title.
I have 8 of 23 is what mine.
Oh,
I move to approve a resolution authorizing the execution of a ground lease. Wait, is this the right thing?
Yes.
Okay, of a ground lease between the Telluride Housing Authority and the town of Telluride, Colorado to lease certain THA owned property generally located at portions of Lot A, Bachman Village, Telluride, Colorado, 81435 to the town of Telluride.
Second. All right, we have a motion from Elena and a second from Jesse Ray. How do you vote?
Elena, yes.
Jesse Ray, yes.
Teddy, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, no.
Geneva, yes. Motion passes 5 to 1. And with that, that's all we have on our agenda for this special
For
PHA
THA.
meeting, and we will conclude this meeting and hand it over to Teddy to call to order the special town council meeting. By unanimous consent.
Geneva, thank you very much. I would like to call to order the special town council meeting of the town of Telluride, Colorado. It is Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. It is 10:17 a.m. and we are at 113 West Columbia in Rebecca Hall, as well as hybrid and online. I'll start with a roll call to my right.
Oh, Ellen 11.
Jesse Ray Arguez.
Geneva Shawnet.
Me and Faith.
Dan Henry.
And Teddy Erico, Mayor. Item number one, the Housing Authority has been concluded. Item number two is action items. And item 2A is introduction and first reading of an ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Telluride concerning the financing of improvements to the Shandoka Building F redevelopment Phase 2 Affordable Housing Project and approving the execution and delivery by the town of a ground lease, site and improvement lease, and a lease purchase agreement and related documents. And we have Kaylee here as well as still James and Lance.
Thank you, Mayor Erico. Yes, so Kaylee's name is on this as it is a financing item, but I will be continuing to present. So don't actually have any additional things to present on this item. The draft ordinance itself is in the packet, and happy to answer any questions you might have on the ordinance of the COP. And we also have Dalton Kelly and Amy Canfield on the line if you need to ask any specific financing questions.
Great. Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments for the group? Seeing none, it is an action item. I would take any public comment if there's public comment in the room. Seeing none, Tiffany, do we have any online?
Seen any hands raised online?
Seeing no public comment on the item, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve an ordinance of the town council of the town of Telluride concerning the financing of improvements to the Shandoka Building F redevelopment Phase 2 affordable housing project and approving the execution and delivery by the town of a ground lease, site and improvement lease, and a lease purchase agreement and related documents.
Second.
We have a motion from Elena, a second from Jesse Ray. Elena, how do you vote?
Elena, yes.
Tiff's got a comment.
Oh,
Can you please direct the town clerk to set it for
Mm.
public hearing for your next meeting of November 19th?
Yes, friendly amendment to set this for public hearing on November 19th. Does that work?
yes.
Okay.
Jesse Ray, do you approve that amendment
I do.
as a second?
I do.
Okay. We have an amended motion with a approved second. Tiffany, you good with that? Elena, how do you vote?
Elena, yes.
Jesse Ray, yes.
Geneva, yes.
Me and yes.
Dan, no.
Teddy, yes. It is approved 5-1. That brings us to action item 2B, consideration and acceptance of the proposed contract sum for the Shandoka Building F redevelopment Phase 2 affordable housing project and authorization to proceed with construction of the project as set forth in Part 2 of the contract between the Town of Telluride and Shaw Construction LLC, and authorization of the town manager to make expenditures from the Telluride Affordable Housing Fund in support of the Shandoka Building F redevelopment Phase 2 affordable housing project. And we have James Van Hoosier still in the hot seat.
Thank you, Mayor Erico. This is your last Shandoka Phase 2 item to consider today. It is the consideration and acceptance of the proposed contract sum and also authorizes the town manager to make expenditures out of the Affordable Housing Fund. As you did in your previous, no, that's not true. This is not an ordinance. We don't need that. I did just notice an error, however, in my proposed motion. The proposed contract sum is the Phase 1 number, not the Phase 2 number. So whoever is going to make a motion, please use the number from the packet, which is $8,404,658. I'm happy to provide that to someone.
What's the number again?
$8,404,658.
Okay.
No sets.
Are there any questions for the group? Any comments for the group on this item? Seeing none, since it is an action item, we will once again go to the room to see if there's any public comment. Seeing none, we'll double check online. I see no public comment. Unless there's any further discussion, I will entertain a motion.
I move to proceed with the Shandoka Building F redevelopment Phase 2 affordable housing project as set forth herein, and authorize Zoe Donnell as agent for the town to execute Part 2 of the design build contract with a proposed contract sum of $8,404,658 submitted by Shaw Construction LLC for the Shandoka Building F redevelopment Phase 2 affordable housing project, and authorize the town manager to make expenditures in compliance with the attached project budget from the Affordable Housing Fund set aside for expenses in support of the Shandoka Building F Phase 2 affordable housing project as set forth herein.
Second.
We have a motion from Mian and a second from Jesse Ray. Mian, how do you vote?
Mean yes?
Jesse Ray, yes.
Helena, yes.
Geneva, yes.
Dan, no?
Teddy, yes. It is approved 5-1. That brings us to action item 2C. Introduction and first reading of an ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Telluride concerning the execution and delivery by the town of a ground lease for the Canyonlands and Tower House Affordable Housing Project. And once again, we have James here in the hot seat.
And before we do that, I am going to step away due to conflicts.
Great. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you, Mayor Errico. James Van Hooser, Town of Telluride. Before you today, we have an introduction and first reading of an ordinance for a ground lease for the Canyonlands and Tower House Affordable Housing Project. I'm going to give some brief context and background and hit on a few of the key deal points in this project, and then take some questions from council, and then hand it over to our private partner in the public-private partnership, Servitas, for a PowerPoint presentation, and then we will continue to take questions. I wanted to note that all that is being considered today is the first reading of the ordinance. At second reading, assuming it goes forward, that is when you would consider the additional documents associated with this project, including the replenishment resolution, second reading of the ordinance, effectiveness opinion, and there will also be a THA item at the next meeting. So little different from what we just did with Shandoka. We're just here for the ground lease. So little background, Town Council directed the Telluride Housing Authority Subcommittee and staff to develop and release an RFP for a potential public-private partnership to occur on the Canyonlands and Tower House sites, which were purchased by the town and Block 23 and identified as future housing sites. That RFP was released on February 22nd, 2023. An interview committee reviewed responses and recommended Servitas LLC as the developer to be retained for pre-development services for the project. That pre-development agreement, which was proposed by Servitas with some town-directed amendments authorized by Town Council on June 13th, 2013. The PDA was a broad and flexible agreement that engaged the developer to collaborate with the town for planning, programming, design, permitting, financing, construction, sale and lease structure, maintenance, management, operation, and overall development of the proposed project. Since then, entitlements have been received. The developer has secured preliminary PUD and subdivision approval, including a right-of-way vacation. Land transfer from Block 23 to the town has occurred, and numerous park approvals for 6 different buildings have been sought and granted throughout this pre-development cycle. A few of the key deal points I wanted to hit on, as I mentioned, this is a slightly different project than this board is used to seeing. Usually the town itself, or THA, kind of acts as the developer. We have retain the services of Servitas to act as the developer for, what do they call it? DBFOM services, design, build, finance, operate, and manage, which is different. The rental portion of this project is proposed to be managed and operated by Servitas rather than by THA staff. That's just a key difference from a project that you're used to seeing. Some other key deal points I wanted to mention: the town is providing the land for the project under the terms of a 30-year ground lease and providing project support in the form of a replenishment resolution, also known as moral obligation. The developer will be taking out the debt. It is not the town or THA's debt. It will be Servitas's debt, or their Servitas's entity's debt, and they will construct, finance, manage, operate, and maintain the project under the terms of the ground lease, which you're reviewing today, as well as a development agreement and asset management agreement. The town has expended approximately $1.5 million in pre-development services to this time. That money is to be reimbursed to the town's affordable housing fund upon approval and financial close of the project. So there's no cash subsidy proposed in this project. Our subsidy is the land, waiver of water, sewer, tap fees and building fees, insurance, things that we generally are already codified in the code, and things that were offered and accepted in the RFP and the pre-development agreement. The for sale proceeds of the for sale portions of the project will be used to buy down the debt of the rental portion of the project to maintain the affordability of those rents in perpetuity. The project is targeted at an average affordability of 120% AMI as codified in the ground lease and consistent with the provisions of the RFP and the PDA. Some of the additional AMI targeting, qualifying, and occupancy requirements as codified in the ground lease. Employment standard will be 1,400 hours per year with intent to work being accepted. Qualified retired and qualified disabled are also eligible. Initial income qualification, no more than 20% higher than the unit's targeted affordability. So for example, if there was an 80% AMI rent unit, your maximum income at initial qualification would be 100% AMI. The ongoing income qualification is no AMIs higher than 150%. Minimum occupancy, 1 person per bedroom. The residential property standard proposed is no ownership of improved residential property in San Miguel County. And as mentioned before, the rental target is an average of 120% AMI, and in no case can any units be priced higher than 150% AMI. The for sale affordable deed restricted condos will be deed restricted consistent with the existing Telluride affordable housing guidelines and use the standard deed restrictions for those projects and be targeted at an average of 120% AMI. Proposed that up to 4 rentals and 2 for sale affordable units be set aside for town staff use, as well as 1 rental set aside for a maintenance staff person on site. That person would still need to qualify pursuant to any other qualification standards, but it was a request that Servitas had to have a unit for an employee working on site. I believe that's all I want to cover at this time. If you
Yeah, there's one point also in the key deal points is that the town will annually approve the operating budget of the asset. It will be provided with reports from the developer confirming compliance with the required AMI targets and other occupancy requirements and qualification standards. So there will be annual reports going to the town that the town has to be basically reviewing and approving the budget for the rental asset moving forward. And that'll allow us to identify any problems, head off any problems early and so forth.
Thank you, Lance. Yeah, one addition to that end, one additional point. So again, Servitas will be managing and operating the project, including qualifications of tenants, which we will have oversight of to make sure that they are in compliance. With that said, on the initial lease ups, we have required the developer to partner with the town of Telluride and SMRHA on those initial lotteries for both the rental and the for sale affordable condos, since we have institutional knowledge regarding the best practices on how to achieve those lotteries.
Does Servitas have other experience operating and managing housing units?
Yes, so I will let Garrett speak to that specifically on the robustness of their management side of their team.
I can do that now. Hi, everyone. Garrett Sharkin, Senior Vice President at Servitas. So we've been in this business approximately 20 years, and we exclusively focus on public-private partnerships and have currently 2,500 beds under management.
Do you ever outsource some of those management duties, or is that all done in-house?
We do on occasion outsource it, and we are looking at that here as well. We have during the construction period to refine that strategy.
If you do go down a path of outsourcing it, would there be an opportunity to then just bring it back in-house for the town of Telluride?
Especially for non-performance. So we work for the landlord in this sense. So if our performance is not up to muster, you can terminate us from this position.
Thank you. And then one other question, but on a slightly different topic. So I hadn't been aware or hadn't realized that there would be a mixture of both rental and for sale. Are those separated by projects, one for Canyonland, one for Tower House, or is there going to be condominiumization within a building and then separating it?
I'll take this one, Garrett. So the Canyonlands parcel is all apartments for rental in 28 units in 2 different buildings, and the Tower House site is all for sale.
Great. Any other questions?
Yeah, what happens when the ground lease, would you say it was 30 years ground lease? When that expires, what happens to the,
So the ground lease will collapse immediately upon payment of the debt, whether that's the full 30-year term or sooner, which Garrett can get into the financials a little bit more. But upon collapse of the ground lease, the rental asset reverts back to the town ownership. The for sale portions will remain with the purchasers of those units.
but the land that the units are on, it's still town, I assume, right?
Canyonland site will be transferred, well, the town has the lease and the town will then own the asset on Canyonlands entirely. The other side, the Tower House will be for the mix of for sale, free market and for sale deed restricted. And those will be owned by those individual owners.
Okay,
The same way that you see at Entrada or Mendota or any, the general common elements will be retained by the HOA of those developments.
okay.
Any other questions, Elena?
Yeah, I guess mine's more of a comment, but the AMI restrictions on this development are much lower than what we have for the rest of our deed restricted program. Does that feel like a concern for anyone, or that just jumped out to me as
Sure.
an inconsistency to have the ongoing income qualification no higher than 150 AMI? Like, I'm okay with that because I do actually want to serve like the lower earners in our community, but it is in stark contrast with what we've allowed in the rest of our rental properties.
I think that's I'm sorry, Jeannie.
I mean, I would love to hear what James has to say too. My approach to this is that, well, this has been under negotiation for a really long time before we conceived of upping our rental maximum so much. And I think that we should just consider this a different kind of rental or a different kind of deed restricted housing. You know, if you look at places in Aspen or other cities where they do more public-private partnerships, there's plenty of deed restricted projects that are not owned and managed by the town, and they operate, you know, still within our affordable housing guidelines for the ownership, and are, you know, require the same sort of compliance checks done by SMRHA or by the housing authority, but there's different rules because they're not a town project. So I'm okay with that. I think that the benefits that we're seeing for not having to manage this for 30 years and to just sort of try something new is, I'm okay with it. But I think it's a good thing to point out, and I wonder if James has other things to add.
I don't have much to add other than, you know, this is what's been negotiated and what's proposed. And if you'd like to see any changes, this is the time to look at those and propose that. If you want a different AMI cap, a
mean-
higher one, you can, that's fine to propose, but this is the deal that's on the table at this time.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I just think of all of the comments that we got that led us to upping that AMI cap initially in our deed restricted rental housing policies. But that did lead me up to a follow-up question. After this 30-year lease expires, I don't know if that's the right word.
Yeah.
Do these like qualification standards still apply to the building, or at that point, if we want to, can we have it mirror the rest of the town-owned projects?
Once we receive the asset back, the ground lease collapses. And so all of these terms are held in the ground lease. So then we,
Okay.
at that point, we would have the
So if we
ability.
wanted to, we could make it
Correct.
just match the rest of our
We
housing.
could recharge the whole project.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could do whatever you want, right?
Correct.
With it.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna hopefully that Servitas understands what, you know, the 120% AMI is, and they're comfortable with that. The one question I have to kind of piggyback on Elena is, you know, 5 years down the road, you know, do we have the ability to adjust the program if we have to whether it's not working and not getting the occupancy? I mean, I highly doubt that, but you never know. Do we have the opportunity to revisit it to make sure it works? Because we
Yeah.
want Servitas to be successful, because this is, you know, the first stab at it, and
Yep.
hopefully that will happen.
Yes, as Lance mentioned earlier, we have the opportunity to review the budget every single year and adjust targets as needed. We can always go lower if we want to go, and we always have to cover debt service. If we want to go higher, that would take some amendments to the ground lease, but certainly the answer is yes.
Okay. Because maybe, Elena, maybe that makes your concern a little less, that we can adjust it if we need to.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, like, I don't know, it jumped out at me as an inconsistency as far as it being a concern. Like, I think it's good that we have housing that's targeted at these income levels, because I did have some hesitancy about making our town housing program at income levels that are so high, but I also understood all of the reasons we did that. But I guess like the thing that pops up here is oh my God, I'm blanking on the word. I'm sorry. Is it not reliable, but secure? Like, if we make the cap, you know, that doesn't leave a ton of room for growth for people. So are people then forced out of this housing after a couple of years? And is that a bad thing? Like, do they then move to a different housing situation or housing project? I don't know. Just, I think the same conversations that we had in THA about why we made those income limits higher, like, still applies here. But I'm okay with moving forward like this, because I do think it's good that we have, not that this is like, this feels more lower middle income housing options, and I think that's a good thing. So I'm okay with it.
Great.
Wanted to call it out.
Any other questions on this from council? Seeing no other questions or comments, this is an action item. So is there anybody in the room for public comment? Seeing none, we will defer to anyone online. I don't think there is anyone there. Lost tip for a second.
Not seeing any hands up, Mayor.
Kevin, thank you for clarifying that. Seeing no public comment, unless there's any further questions for Servitas or Lance and James or Kaylee sitting there in the back, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve on first reading an ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Telluride concerning the execution and delivery by the town of a ground lease. Is that the one we're on? Yeah.
Yes.
For the Canyonlands and Tower House Affordable Housing Project, and authorize staff to make non-substantive and immaterial business term revisions as needed, and direct the clerk to set this for a second reading at the November 19th Town Council meeting.
We have a motion from Geneva and a second from Jesse Ray. Kevin, you're good with that?
I am, and that was the one addition. It wasn't clear to me, were we expecting a presentation from Servitas?
Not necessary.
Okay.
Council doesn't need it.
All right.
Okay. Great. We confirm the motion is approvable by council. Geneva, how do you vote?
Geneva, yes.
Jesse Ray, yes.
Elena, yes.
Dan, yes.
Teddy, yes. It is approved unanimously. Thanks everyone for being on the call and being in the room to present this today. That brings us to item number 3 on the agenda, and that is executive session. 3A, Town Attorney Annual Evaluation for discussion of a personnel matter under CRS Section 24-6-4024FI and Section 4.6B of the Telluride Home Rule Charter, and not involving any specific employees who have requested discussion of the matter in open session, any member of this body or any elected official, the appointment of any person to fill an office of this body of an elected official, or personnel policies that do not require the discussion of matters personal to particular employees.
So we need a motion on that.
Oh,
You can just say so moved.
so moved.
Sorry.
Somebody want to
Okay.
second it?
Second. Oh.
All in favor to go into executive session?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
We're We'll get you there.
Right, my brain's on vacation. All right, we'll get it right this time. The time is now 11:13 a.m. and the executive session has concluded. The participants in the executive session were Kevin Geiger, Dan Enright, Jesse Ray Arguez, me and Fee, Eva Shawnette, Elena Levin, and me, Teddy Erico. For the record, if any person who participated in the executive session believes that any substantial discussion of any matters not included in the motion to go into the executive session occurred during the executive session, or that any improper action occurred during the executive session in violation F of the open meetings law, I would ask that you state your concerns for the record. Seeing none, the next item on the agenda is to adjourn by mutual consent.